Then they went up to the castle, and there stood in the hall a dish, and the wrought bride's shirt that lay on it seemed as if of gold and silver. The young king went up to it and was going to put it on, but faithful John pushed him away, picked it up with his gloved hands, threw it quickly on the fire, and there let it burn. The other servants began grumbling again, and said, "Look, he is even burning up the king's bridal shirt." But the young king said, "Who knows but that there may be a good reason for it? Let him be. He is my faithful John." Then the wedding feast was held, and the bride led the dance. Faithful John watched her carefully, and all at once she grew pale and fell down as if she were dead. Then he went quickly to her and carried her into a chamber hard by, laid her down, and kneeling, took 3 drops of blood from her right breast. Immediately she drew breath again, and raised herself up. But the young king, witnessing all, and not knowing why faithful John had done this, grew very angry, and cried out, "Throw him into prison!" The next morning faithful John was condemned to death and led to the gallows, and as he stood there ready to suffer, he said, "He who is about to die is permitted to speak once before his end. May I claim that right?" "Yes," answered the king, "it is granted to you." Then said faithful John, "I have been condemned unjustly, for I have always been faithful." And he related how he had heard on the sea voyage the talk of the ravens, and how he had done everything in order to save his master. Then cried the king, "Oh, my faithful John, pardon, pardon, lead him down." But faithful John, as he spoke the last words, fell lifeless and became stone. The king and queen had great grief because of this, and the king said, "Ah, how could I have evil rewarded such faithfulness?" And he caused the stone image to be lifted up and put to stand in his sleeping room by the side of his bed. And as often as he saw it, he wept and said, "What would that I could bring thee back to life, my faithful John." After some time the queen bore twins, 2 little sons that grew and thrived, and were the joy of their parents. One day, when the queen was in church, the 2 children were sitting and playing with their father, and he gazed at the stone image full of sadness, sighed, and cried, "Oh, that I could bring thee back to life, my faithful John." Then the stone began to speak, and said, "Yes, thou canst bring me back to life again, if thou wilt bestow therefore thy best beloved." Then cried the king, "All that I have in the world will I give up for thee." The stone went on to say, "If thou wilt cut off the heads of thy 2 children with thy own hand, and besmear me with their blood, I shall receive life again." The king was horror-struck at the thought that he must put his beloved children to death, but he remembered all John's faithfulness and how he had died for him, and he drew his sword and cut off his children's heads with his own hand. And when he had besmeared the stone with their blood, life returned to it, and faithful John stood alive and well before him. And he said to the king, "Thy faithfulness shall not be unrewarded." And taking up the heads of the children, he set them on again, and besmeared the wound with their blood, upon which in a moment they were whole again, and jumped about, and went on playing as if nothing had happened to them. Now was the king full of joy, and when he saw the queen coming, he put the faithful John and the two children in a great chest. When she came in, he said to her, Hast thou prayed in church? Yes, answered she, but I was thinking all the while of faithful John, and how he came to such great misfortune through us. Then said he, Dear wife, we can give him life again, but it will cost us both our little sons, whom we must sacrifice. The queen grew pale and sick at heart, but said, We owe it him because of his great faithfulness. Then the king rejoiced because she thought as he did, and he went and unlocked the chest and took out the children and faithful John, and said, God be praised, he is delivered, and our little sons are ours again. And he related to her how it had come to pass. After that, they all lived together in happiness to their lives' end. Well, that was shocking. Wow. Kind of reminds me of something from the Bible. Was it Abraham? Was that who that was? Sacrificing your kids. Wow, that was definitely a disturbing story for children to be read. Wow. Well, they all lived happily ever after, though. But yeah, definitely disturbing story.